How often have we heard a preacher start a sermon with a long and complicated story, or a boring series of irrelevant jokes that make us wonder where the sermon was going? It happens. How can we avoid making the same mistake and week after week deliver consistently good introductions? This lesson will encourage us to start our sermons well. This lesson proposes to persuade us as to the importance of introductions, how to prepare excellent introductions, principles of good introductions, finding ideas, when to prepare the introduction, how to change an introduction on the spot when necessary, and gives an example sermon outline. Why are introductions important? An introduction is the opportunity to grab people's attention for what we're about to say. It can be like a verbal lasso, an appetizer, a teaser, and an advertisement for what's next. It should build anticipation and eagerness for what we have to say. It should answer the question, why should anyone bother listening? It gives parents time to settle their kids down and focus on what we have to say. It gives sleepy, overworked farmers, corporate executives, and mothers a reason to try and stay awake. It gives switched-off teenagers and non-member spouses a reason to turn off their phones and listen up. If we don't catch people during our introduction, we may have lost them for the entire sermon. How do we prepare? A good introduction is like everything else in sermon preparation. Prepare it ahead of time. However, there is an exception, where we may have to change our prepared introduction so as to be a bridge between last-minute events and the sermon we had prepared. Examples of last-minute events may be news of a death of someone in the church, a blessed event such as a baby being born, news of a major world event, something that was said by a speaker before the sermon, and so on. What are principles of good introductions? Good introductions can be mastered if a few simple rules are followed. However, just like many things in life, the rules are simple, but it takes a lifetime to master. Be arresting. A good introduction is like a verbal lasso, grabbing attention, compelling people to want to hear more. Be relevant. The introduction must relate to the topic. Don't tell a favorite joke and then speak about a totally unrelated topic. Save the good joke for the relevant sermon. Be simple. Use one thought. The introduction must be simple and focused. Don't give a scatterbrained smorgasbord to launch a presentation. Be true. Don't exaggerate or promise more than the sermon will deliver. Sensationalism and pretense cheapen a sermon, making it more like a circus sideshow than an honest presentation. Be varied. Don't use the same kind of predictable introduction each week. Be brief. Don't use long and tiresome introductions. Plan. Carefully prepare the introduction. Put a lot of thought into it, but be ready to change it if on the day of the sermon circumstances dictate. Where do we find ideas? Ideas don't come easily to everyone. Some preachers keep a special idea file for newspaper clippings, witty sayings, jokes, stories, and are constantly on the lookout for ideas for future use. The following are some sources for ideas for introductions. The passage. The text may contain a thread of an idea. Be relevant to the text. The topic. Be pertinent to the theme. Don't discuss one topic in the introduction when the body contains another. The occasion. Connect to the season or reason for the meeting. The problem. The introduction must be applicable to any problem addressed in the sermon. The goal. Our introduction must be relevant to the purpose of the sermon. The news. If a related news item is relevant, it may be fitting. The story. If the text is part of a bigger context, make the introduction relevant to the story behind the text. Tell a striking statement. Don't exaggerate or be silly. Be factual in any stunning introduction. Use imagination. Be innovative, but never heretical nor offensive. When do we prepare the introduction? In time order, the introduction is usually the last thing we prepare, but we ought to spend enough time on it to make it an attention-grabbing introduction. Preparing the conclusion before the introduction helps us connect the two together. For instance, it's no good promising solutions to marriage problems in the introduction and then telling us to remember the poor in the conclusion. We need to end up where we agreed to go in the introduction. Last-minute introductions are sometimes necessary. We may be able to save parts of our original introduction or use it completely at another time. If last-minute events necessitate a change of introduction, use imagination. How can we make a bridge between the event and the sermon topic? Don't make it contrived. If there's no natural bridge, just mention the event in the first sentence or so, and then move on to the prepared introduction. However, if we can find a natural bridge, so much the better. What's the order of preparation? We work on our body, then our conclusion, then our introduction, which is different to the order of delivery, where we give the introduction, then the body, and then our conclusion. Let's look at Psalm 23 as an example sermon. Our introduction might include questions like, who do we follow? Is it a TV star, a sports hero, a successful business hero, a fashion guru, or some other leader? Like all Christians, we've been too often led astray. The grass seemed greener on the other side of the fence. Perhaps we were curious or just prone to wander. Isaiah lamented that we're all like sheep who have wandered off and gotten lost. We've all gone our own way and gotten into trouble. Yet Jesus took it all on himself to rescue us and set things right. Other questions might be, what's so enticing about the world around us? Why are we so easily distracted? Why do we so easily lose our way and wander off from God at times? Was it a world of gadgetry and bright lights and other distractions that surround us? Was it boredom with the things of God? Were we thinking that the world has something better to offer than God does? Perhaps there are thousands of reasons why we have strayed. The point is, we all have, and we all do. So what's the goal of preaching Psalm 23? Well, we could say that Psalm 23 encourages us not to stray, because only in the Lord is there good pasture. And in our body of our sermon, we might make comments along the lines of, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, and give some examples. Commenting on, he makes me lie down in green pastures, and about still waters, and give some examples of what that means. He restores my soul, leads me in the right paths, and give some examples of being on the right track. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, give some examples of comfort, and the fact that in the valley is good food, and yet that's where the danger is too. You prepare a table, and my cup runs over. What are some examples of that? Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What does that mean? In our conclusion, we might say something along the lines of, with the Lord as our pastor, we don't need a thing. He feeds us the best spiritual food, the water of life, and gives our life the right direction. Even in the darkest days, we have no need to be afraid with Him at our side. He makes us feel secure, feeds us right in front of our enemies. He revives our drooping head, and our life overflows with spiritual blessings. So let's stay in the house of the Lord for the rest of our lives. So I have a suggested assignment for this particular topic. Prepare a sermon or sermonette as before, using a text, and work particularly on a good introduction, using all the principles that we've described. So what's the conclusion to the whole thing? An attention-grabbing, exciting introduction makes people want to pay attention. It's like a verbal lasso. It grabs them. We want people to listen as we explain the most important words ever written, the Bible.